Different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake of
technology increased, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Master Connector Show. I'm your co-host, Rob Genovese, and listen, we are coming at you every single Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, live here on LinkedIn. We're also going out to YouTube. We're going to be coming out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so you can listen to recordings of the show there. And we hope you're joining us every single week as we bring you amazing, amazing guests, people sharing their stories, experiences, their skills to help you level up. Now, listen, if you want to catch every show, we want you to be here. We want you to interact with us. When you come in, show your love, comment, like, interact is the name of the game here. It is the Master Connector Show. So we want you connecting with each other. We want to know where you're coming in from. If you got any questions, you can put those in the comments for any of us, especially for our speaker. And if you want to know who's coming up on the show, I want you to go to masterconnector.show and you can see all the guests that we have coming up. And look, we can't show them all on the website, but we are booked out to the year, all 2025. So we got amazing people coming up. Be sure to put it in your calendar so you don't miss a single episode or who your favorite speaker is going to be, masterconnector.show. And look, Steve and I started this. I came aboard. Steve started long before I came aboard. I came aboard about a year and a half ago. And look, we are introverts. If you're an introvert out there, I want you to get in the comments and type in introvert, because most people think that introverts, it's harder for them to win. It's harder for them to connect. It's harder for them to do all these things that people who have success do. I'm going to tell you that's false. Introversion, extroversion is an energy thing. If you're shy, you can overcome it, because we are two former shy guys, and now we are master connectors. But Steve is the master connector, so help me bring him to the show, Mr. Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
What's up, Robbie G? How you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing tremendous things. So pumped and excited to be partnered with you and get things rolling with this show. It's going to be an incredible show. And what's going on, everyone? Steve Spiel, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. And, listen, we all have our struggles, our challenges. One of the pillars of our show is having grit, right? And we also talk a lot about, telling our story. And we all have our story. I've been through my own stuff, right? I think I did some posts this week about it, right? I remember getting my nose broke really bad in the martial arts. And as my mentor says, I learned how not to duck into my 6'5", 300-pound martial arts instructor's roundhouse kick and duck right into his knee as he was coming around with a kick. I mean, good lesson there, right? When to duck and when not to duck. I got laid off in the advertising industry, in the marketing world, and I had a really high level job, and I had to reinvent myself. And of all things, I went into hardcore sales, and that was a experience of itself, right? For years, I was broken and wounded as just this person that just had a super low self-esteem and really didn't feel good about myself, and all the rejection and all the different hurt I had, and I just became very guarded and didn't like interacting with people. And in fact, growing up, as you've probably heard me say, some of my best friends was Captain Kirk from Star Trek, and Jackie, the Honeymooners, right? Ralph Cramden and Felix Unger and Oscar Madison. Those were my two from The Odd Couple. And some of you guys don't even know who I'm talking about, but that's who my friends were, because I just didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to get hurt. But you know what? As we've heard through the years, and some of you guys have heard this a lot, and a lot of people, I'm sure you have, sometimes our test becomes our testimony. Our mess that we are in becomes our message. And so it's an opportunity for us to tell our stories and share how we've overcome things and how we become better. And I think today, and we're going to learn more about this today from our amazing guest, in the world of AI and technology, right? It can be so easy for us to be so auto-generated and AI-generated and so mechanical, but it's now more than ever. It's always been important, but now more than ever, to really humanize our communication and really be authentic. Another pillar of our show is being authentic. Another one is being others focused, right? And that's all what it's about. And I believe, through all those journeys and struggles and challenges I've had, I've learned how to break those barriers to create real human connection. And so I love speaking about that on stage. It's one of my favorite topics. I get asked to speak on that a lot. So if you're ready, and by the way, welcome to an amazing person on the show. And Yolanda, we're going to have you on the show soon. We got to. Yolanda Chin here. She's welcoming herself onto the show. We love having you on the show here. But anyway, without any further ado, I want to bring up my man who just so blessed, friend of 26, 27 years, incredible brand builder, guy you want to get to know if you haven't yet. And just being on the show, you're going to get to know him, but connect with him. But Rob G, I'll turn it to you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Listen, we're not going to waste any more time. Let's go. Mr. Jay Pasqua, the storytelling strategist, is an indigenous storyteller from the Western Pacific island of Guam. Jay's journey began in journalism. However, he felt a deeper calling to honor his ancestors by sharing their legacy through the art of storytelling. His work was commissioned for the book Poems from the Edge of Extinction that ultimately became a gold medal winner for poetry and special honors award for Best Anthology of the 2020 Nautilus Book Awards. Jay continues to share cultural stories on LinkedIn through a weekend audio event and a newsletter about storytelling. Please welcome to the show, Jay Pasqua. What's up, Jay?
Hey, hi, guys.
Good to have you.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you so much for having me. You guys bring so much energy, and the topics and the information that you provide, man, is invaluable. So I'm just humbled to be here, actually.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We're blessed to have you on here, and I want to just welcome Kevin Smith. I recently connected with Kevin. He's on the show, and he's looking forward to it. And of course, the amazing Yolanda is welcoming you also to the Master Connector Show, Jay. So this is gonna be awesome. I'm excited to have you on here. So we're gonna dig right into it. So again, community, as Rob said, we're LinkedIn participants, not LinkedIn lurkers. So get in the comments. We want to hear from you. And so at least if you don't know what to put in the comments, as we're going to guide you here. So first thing is put in hashtag storytelling. Okay. We want that participation. We want you to just get in there and be active. Right. So here's the question based on storytelling, right? I talked about it in my opening, right? How has storytelling shaped your journey and helped you find your purpose, which that's ultimately what today's topic is all about. So let's kick off right there, sir, if you don't mind.
Well, it goes back for me, going back to my high school days. There was a practicum program. I was in computer science, and they wanted me to do something with my knowledge on campus. They couldn't find anything, and so they paired me up with the public relations officer of that place. And she said, you know what? Why don't you put together a newsletter? And that actually started my journey. I became a storyteller through news and grew my interest in storytelling as a result of my career. And for 15 years, I grew in the media industry. Now, we're calling it the legacy media industry these days, right? So it's print, it's radio, it's TV, old school. But that's where I started. And I started out as a cub reporter right out of high school, 19 years of age. And I was on TV doing that work. And I wanted to help my community by providing the best information possible, the most effective, the most efficient news information that I could provide at that age. And that actually started something in me that became even deeper, something that would impact my community in such a way that would not just be beneficial to the people that listen to it, but also even generations to come. And I started looking at cultural storytelling to be able to do that. And I left the news business and became a storyteller in that regard, doing poetry. As you mentioned, I've been a part of numerous anthologies. Storytelling to me is at the core of everything we do as human beings when we communicate. and
You know, Jay,
effective
to
communication.
tag on to that,
Yeah,
you're the storytelling strategist, but our audience, a lot of them are probably not storytellers, or they think they're not, even though you said like everybody needs to do it. And the idea here is, as I was building my brand strategy company, when I was first starting out, I didn't know what to say. I didn't have many clients that I can use as testimonials or reviews or stories. I didn't have many success stories. So what did I do? I started telling my personal story of how I became one. And you know what people were saying, Jay? It's so funny because when you talk about it, people were going, "Wow, what a great story." So what's the next step? And I would be like, and they were hiring me because the story was so compelling. And listen, I got to tell you, my story is not earth shattering. It's my story, but I tell it in a compelling way that made people go, "That's really cool. Let's talk more." So, to your point, everybody needs to tell their story, right?
absolutely. I truly believe that it's one of the things that's important to differentiate yourself from the rest of the people who are out there. Whether you're a storyteller in as an author or as a writer, or if you're a storyteller who's got a small business, who is trying to be an entrepreneur online, things like that, especially online. In this day and age, you need to differentiate yourself from the pack. And how
100%.
you do that is with your own story, your
I
brand
gotta ask
story.
a question. So,
Yeah,
I love my wife. She's awesome. She's amazing. If she's listening to I just want to ask a question in light of this. So, and I know other people in my life that do this as well. They start with telling a story, and often the story comes from a question. And so, like, she'll start going on with a story, and I'm thinking to myself, where the heck is this going? Like I have no clue where it's going. And then at the very end, 5 minutes later, she kind of gets to the, if you will, punchline. And I don't know, you tell me, I'd love to hear your perspective on this, Jay. But my question, I say to her, I say, listen, you may want to start with the headline of the article and then tell the story and then come to the conclusion, because I had no clue where you were going with this and I was completely lost. I mean, what are your thoughts about that in terms of storytelling? And you were formerly in the traditional, as you said, legacy, type of media, right?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it goes back to the things we learned in middle school, and even
Right.
elementary school. There's got to be a beginning, middle, and end, right?
Yeah.
And and for me, that's just boils down to 10 rules. Since the last time we talked, I actually published a book
Awesome.
on storytelling, the rules of engagement in storytelling. There's 10 basic rules. But you're right. You have to be able to tell a story in such a way that people are going to listen. And if you're kind of meandering through, twists and turns, and then you give a punchline, sometimes people aren't going to stay for that punchline. So you've got to do it in a way that's going to be effective.
You're on mute, Steve.
Yeah, there's definitely a fine line for sure in that, in that how you do it. So I want to kind of move into communication, right? So type in hashtag communication. So why do you, and we're touching on this a little bit, so let's dig on it, right? Why do you believe storytelling is the foundation of effective communication? What's your perspective on that?
Well, there. I hate to use a study, but here's a study. The University of Liverpool actually did a study on storytelling. 85% of communication from people, human beings, right? 85% is storytelling. The rest is rumors, innuendo.
Mm.
So it's interesting to me. So if we're communicating, a majority of what we're doing based on this study is storytelling, whether it's, by the water cooler at work, whether it's in a lot of places now, smoke docks where you can have a cigarette and just chill out. A lot of those places, people are having conversations. And at the core of all of that is a story. You were talking about a brand. Being an entrepreneur, you've got to tell your story to be able to be out there ahead of who is your competition.
Yeah,
Jay,
no
what
doubt.
would you say to somebody, when I tell people, my story, and then I want to educate others, because part of building a brand is you got to have that brand story, right? So that's part of strategy. But even if you don't have a brand strategy yet, and people need to tell their story, what would you say to somebody who says, "Yeah, but Jay, I don't really have a great story, so there's really not much to tell." What would you say to that?
You may not think you have a great story, but somebody out there does. And if you are saying my story isn't great, you're limiting yourself. You're stopping yourself from getting that story out there. The thing about it is, get your story out there and let your audience, and you should already know who your audience is, decide. Don't be the one to decide. Let your audience do it, because
Yeah.
you're going to be limiting yourself.
I think everybody has a story, and I tell people you just have to craft it. I was recently on a connect call with somebody recently, and I said to them, so tell me your story. I like to start connect calls with that. I think Jay, you and I did that too. And she just basically gave me like a sentence or two about what she does. I said, no, I really want to hear your story. She's like, the whole story? I said, yeah, far back as you want to go. I'm going to talk about how I'm born and raised. Anyway, long story short, literally 30 minutes later, the call was ended and she only told us that was her story and she was still going. So I said, all right, we're going to rebook a second call. I'm going to show you kind of like through my story, how I've crafted it. And I kept it to 3 to 4 to 5 minutes. And hopefully this will help you. And she did, she saw it. And, you just got to figure out what makes sense, what you're going to bring out. Everyone has stuff to talk about. You just have to craft it. If you're just going from the cuff, in my opinion, it's never going to be a effective story. I just want to acknowledge, because Yolanda is incredible here. Have a clear message helps to focus the narrative and ensure that the audience understands the intended point. And then I also want to acknowledge what Kevin mentioned earlier, which is we all have stories that that can resonate and empower others if we are willing to share them. And then the other thing that he talked about was talking about everyone has a story. If they feel they do, then start writing it today. Absolutely. And I think also Kevin talked about the why. Extremely important to have a why. It's somewhere. Here it is. Okay. Yeah. People always want to know the why. And if nothing more, your story could talk about where you're going. So even if you haven't accomplished a lot yet, you could talk about where you're going, and there's a story there, right? So anyway, it's interesting. We were talking a little bit about connection. So we're going to jump to connection. So community, type in hashtag connection. So, as I was talking about this story about, this person who I had to school a little bit, she's a great lady, no disrespect. But what role does storytelling play in building real, meaningful connections in business and in life, in your opinion?
Oh, this is the way you establish rapport. I was
Right.
in the contact center business for many years, right? And it's a very volatile industry, by the way, right? Nobody calls a call center saying how great and wonderful a company is. It's usually, hey, I got a problem. You got to fix it. And so, how do you reach those people? Well, by creating a connection. And the best way to create that connection, we just heard it right there in the comments, is by sharing your story.
That's right.
And if somebody resonates, aligns with that story, you're going to be able to better communicate with that person.
The other thing I want to talk about is, if you're in some kind of business development, or you're an entrepreneur and you're looking for new business, right? One of the best ways that you can actually market yourself is through stories, telling, maybe it's testimonial stories, but not say, hey, my company is good at this, good at this. No, you illustrate it through telling how you helped solve a problem, you tell the story. And then you also could throw in how John Smith or Rob Genovese was so impressed and so appreciative because I had solved this. Now it's not only a story, but it's also a testimony. So there's so much value in it. So it's not just the connection side, which I completely agree with. I've created some incredible connections through telling my story and hearing theirs.
Yeah.
But it's also a good way to kind of build your business as well,
And
right?
one of the things
If
I
you,
realized too,
yeah,
on that point, and to what Kevin was saying about people want to know your why, is look, with LinkedIn, all the social media, the world has gotten very small. So we can put ourselves out there as much as we want, and it crowds the space. So when people are meeting with you, they're going, well, they're not just going, should I hire you? They're going, why should I hire you? Versus the myriad of people they could possibly hire. So what sets you apart? And what I realized, what I discovered was when I told people like how I became a brand strategist and why I decided to do it, it wasn't like I picked this when I was 18 years old, went to college and became it. There's a story there. And I think when you tell that story of why you're doing what you're doing, people go, okay, that's solid. That's something people can connect with. And that's why they would hire somebody versus me just going, well, I'm just really good at it and I can help you. There's nothing there, right?
straight out of what Simon Sinek Start With Why, right? He says that when you're getting into that emotion, it really it resonates with people in a way, in a deep way, and it touches their limbic portion of the brain, the emotional piece of the brain, and that's why people move, not from logic, but through emotion. So, Jay, I want to hear your perspective. Looks like you want to say something.
Man, I'm chomping at the bit. So this is the thing. Think it was 2 years ago, we watched a 2-hour commercial on a shoe brand. And I'm talking about the movie Air, right? The movie, the trailer, a lot of people thought, oh, this is going to be another story about Michael Jordan. We all know the story of Michael Jordan, but this movie was about a shoe executive. The protagonist, the hero of the movie, was the shoe executive. And a lot of us sat through this movie 2 hours and some minutes, but it was compelling. We saw what it was like to be at the precipice of greatness, right? Touching greatness. And it happened where this guy, an executive, trying to build a brand or rebuild it, it was on the verge of almost going out of business.
Yeah.
And it was great. And that's the thing. People want to know the story. Who would have thought, right, that we would sit through an entire 2 hours watching something about a shoe?
Yeah, no doubt. I don't know if you've read the book, or in my case, I listened to the book, Shoe Dog. So that takes the whole story to a whole nother level when you hear the backstory of the founder of Nike. It's pretty wild. And what's interesting about the movie you're referring to, they didn't even show Michael Jordan, right? They show the back of his head, little pieces of it, exactly. But we're touching on brand here a little bit. I know Rob is going to chime in too, because that's his sweet spot, being the brand builder guy. But I want to talk about brand. So community, type in #brand. And, again, we're touching on this. So let's dig a little bit here. How does a compelling story set your brand apart and create lasting impact?
For me, it really is about making that connection. I've said it multiple times already in the conversation. People will connect with you based on your story.
Yeah.
We're seeing it today, right? A lot of the major brands out there, if I mention, Mark Zuckerberg, the brand he's associated with, right? If I say, Elon Musk, how many brands is he attached to, right? People are going to relate to your story more now than ever in the past, right? And so brand building is not just about the brand itself. It's about you and your story, the founder, a lot of times.
Yeah.
And sometimes you are the brand.
Well, that's what I was going to say, right? In my opinion, and that's why, people, ask questions to me about LinkedIn, because they do a lot on LinkedIn, right? And they say, hey, what should I put on my LinkedIn? Should I put my company? No, it's people buy into you. They buy into you, and then the brand, right? So you want to definitely humanize who you are and your brand, and before you start talking about a company. But Rob, you're the expert here. Let's see what you have.
Yeah, I feel like I have to weigh in, right? No,
Yeah.
but the point here that Jay's making, audience, is, you know, the story behind the brand a lot of times, and you mentioned that movie, which was a phenomenal movie, right? Because it was totally unexpected. People think it's going to be a lot about Michael Jordan. It wasn't. And what happens is when you tell this story, right? We talked about the connection, and in Seth Godin, now Seth Godin is just an amazing, amazing marketer. And one of his books, Tribes, he says in there, people want to feel when they come into contact with a brand. Now, that could be through a video, it could be through photography, it could be through anything. They should have this reaction. They're for me. When you relate to a brand so much that you go, they're for me, that's where the connection happens with the brand, right? The company and the brand are basically two separate entities. You build them simultaneously. The company's the business. The brand is where you bring the audience in to be your tribe, to be loyal, to be a raving fan. So storytelling and brand, they are inextricable.
Love that. That's great. Yeah. So let's. I know I mentioned it in the earlier on in the opening on AI, right? So let's just talk about AI as we sort of wind the show down. We're really at the end here, so wrap it up, right? People want to know. Okay, AI is going to take over the world. What's the story? How does it fit in? So what's your perspective? So with AI generate content at scale, right? How can people claim the art of authentic storytelling?
Whew. I think right now, the reason I wrote the book, The Rules of Engagement in Storytelling, really was because we are in the age of AI. This is the era for it, right? I see it, however, as a tool. I'm not looking for somebody to write my story and have them tell it. And that's what AI is doing for a lot of folks. That's not what we should be doing with it. And that's the reason I said, I got to write this book. We got to get back to the basics. People got to learn how to tell their personal story. And then let's filter it through AI. Let it do some things, take it to another level. But let's start with our personal stories. And then it's got to be put through AI if you want to. But the prompt comes from us, right? The human being, the one with the heart, the one with the soul.
Yeah. It's funny because I've been hearing some talk out there that there's sort of this generic speak going on because everyone's going into AI, ChatGPT, and asking similar questions and they're posting that stuff, and it's very general, very generic. So yeah, the more you can, if you're going to work with AI, what I found is you got to make sure you're programming it to know your voice, to know your story. So if you are going to use it, it's leveraging who you are and your it's almost a contradictory what I'm going to say, a contradictory because it's your authentic self because it's come through AI, but it's using your story, right? And last thing I'll say this, and then I want to have you close up with how best way to reach you. But Kevin says AI, the key is the A, meaning artificial, but the key to personal fulfillment is the A for authenticity. I like that. I love that, Kevin. That's really, really good. Cool. So this has been tremendous. Obviously, these shows, like they could go forever. It's like half hour back in the day when we first got me and Cameron Toth started this show. It was like we basically were doing an hour and 20 minutes. This is in the thick of COVID when nobody had no place. Everyone was home. There was nowhere to go. But nowadays, we're trying to keep it efficient. But just appreciate you, Jay. What's the best way for our community to reach you, if you would, sir?
Really, there's two ways you can reach me through LinkedIn. Just look me up, Jay Pasqua, the storytelling strategist. You can find me there. The other way is through my website, and that's www.ruleyourstory.com.
Love it. And remind us the name of the book again, and maybe I don't know if you want to offer the audience if they comment, maybe get them a free signed book, maybe with the first person. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out. You don't have to say yes to that.
No, you know what? Let's do that.
So show your book up again.
Yeah. The Rules of Engagement in Storytelling.
All right. So first person that reaches out to Jay and mentions the Master Connector show is going to get a free book signed from Jay. Look at that. Go for it, audience. So don't sleep on that. Anyway, Jay, it's been a pleasure. Really, really appreciate you. going to have you go in the green room as we wind up the show. But thank you again for blessing our audience, our community. Just appreciate you. Have an incredible afternoon. We'll see you soon. All right, audience. Man, that's awesome. A lot of great nuggets. To me, a nugget fest being on with Jay. And I love how Jay and Rob were kind of working in and out because it's storytelling and brands so related. It's awesome. But next week, same bad time, same bad channel, March 26th, growing through the extremes of life. So it's interesting. We're kind of on this sort of theme kind of going on here, right? Kind of, we're talking weatherings of storms and so forth. And now the extremes of life and the growth coming through that. So it's going to be a great show with Michael Paterano. Make sure you tune in, episode 204. And if you're interested in learning more, not only about the show coming up, but future episodes, go to masterconnector.show. If you'd like to be a sponsor of a particular episode, like we've had our friend Russ Hedge do, go to masterconnector.show as well and learn more about that. Don't forget, we're also on YouTube and Spotify. If you find us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, by the way, subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe. We'd appreciate that. But I want to close it down with a quick story, as I've been doing lately, right? Vera Wang started as a figure skater and journalist, but faced setbacks that kept her from reaching the Olympic level and advancing at Vogue as a chief editor-in-chief. As editor-in-chief. At 40, after missing out both dreams, she pivoted to bridal fashion, an industry she had no prior experience in, and built a global empire. Her journey proves that storms can reroute us towards our true calling, and sometimes the best chapters of our story begin when we least expect them. Folks, let's look at our setbacks and the storms of our lives as opportunities to grow and shape the story, to shape our story, so we can get to share that with others and go on and shine our light. God bless. See you next week.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives